All right. Hope my fans are ready. Yeah. This is Mr. Hernandez Teaches. Bringing you another rap from his house. Yeah. Here we go. Y'all know how it is. I'm not gonna rap. So I wanted to spend this Thanksgiving edition, I guess, kind of special. I wanted to really kind of just do an autobiography of myself and tell you guys where I kind of came from, what my background is, and how I got here. Really give you a full in-depth story. So in order to get into my story, I'm going to start before I was born. Both of my parents grew up and lived in San Antonio for pretty much their entire lives. And then when they were in high school, they ended up getting pregnant, and they my brother, my oldest brother Chris, he was born. And so after attending school for a year and realizing it wasn't going to be such an easy thing to do with the child, my father decided to join the military. It was a good route for them. It was a good job, and it kind of gave him some more financial stability. So my dad joined the military. He joined the Air Force, and he became basically a mechanic. And he did a lot of work with that. When I was born, my father was stationed in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't remember which base it was out there. Maybe Shepherd's out there. I don't remember. But I was born, my middle brother, Eric, and then I was born just a year after that. And then, so we were born in Phoenix. We lived there for a few years, so I'm kind of hazy on the years. I didn't really get a good, clear mapping. And then I guess maybe when I was around 4, we moved back to San Antonio. And while we were in San Antonio, my dad was a training instructor on the base here. So he wore like a Smokey the Bear kind of hat. And he yelled at a lot of the trainees. And it was kind of funny because sometimes he would do that to us. Maybe not the funniest thing, but every once in a while his training instructor would come out. And then so we lived there for a couple more years. I think maybe about 2 years before moving to Georgia. And then while we were in Georgia, my dad got stationed in Korea for a year. So, basically spent a year away from my dad, going to school. I was in elementary school. And then we were in Georgia for probably about 2 years, I think, and moved. And then my dad came back from Korea, and I ended up, he gave us an option. He was like, there's a lot of stuff that we can decide. Hey, Ash. So he gave us an option. He was like, there's a lot of things we can do, but, we could go to Germany. And so when I was 8, we kind of made the family decision that we would move to Germany. And then in February, I got pulled out of school, the elementary school I was going to in Georgia. And then we flew from Georgia to Germany. And that was, so then February is like the middle of winter, like kind of I would say one of the coldest parts of winter, January and then early February timeframe. And then we got off this plane. We landed in Germany. I had no idea what was going on. Like I said, I've never really traveled like that before. And like I said, I was 8, and my dad, he had been traveling a lot, but I had no idea what was going on. My very first time on a plane, I threw up, mostly because my brother Eric, he was sitting in the seat next to me. He wasn't feeling good, and he threw up. And when I saw throw up, that made me puke. That's kind of gross. But we got off the plane. We got our stuff. We come out of the Frankfurt airport, and that was the very first time I had seen snow. I had no idea what was going on. I think the way I remember this is I was wearing shorts and like a light jacket. I was cold. It was very cold. Um, but then we took a shuttle from Frankfurt to the base. It's called Bitburg, and um, we stayed in like it's called temporary housing. So we stayed in basically like a kind of like a hotel, but not really a hotel. We kind of stayed there for a couple weeks before getting moved on to base housing, and that's pretty much where I stayed for the next 8 years at Spangdahlem Air Base in Germany. And so I basically got pulled out of school in second grade. My other brother, he was like in fourth grade. And then my oldest brother, Chris, I think he was in seventh grade. No, he was in eighth grade at the time. And we ended up just getting pulled out of our schools and getting thrown into a different country, a different school system. It's kind of crazy how that happens. But it was probably one of the best choices that my family and that us have ever made. So pretty much that experience, pretty much that experience has given me so much insight into how I wanted to live my life. Like I said, I lived in Spangdahlem Air Base for 8 years, and then there's some change of circumstances. Both of my brothers were living in the States, either going to college or working. And then my dad had to he ended up getting stationed in Vegas, and they gave me the option of like, okay, you can finish up your last 2 years in Germany at Bitburg High School. Actually, I'm wearing my alumni shirt right now. So they said that you could, you could finish up school here in Germany, or you could we could all move together to Vegas and you could finish up school there. And I was really liking the opportunities that I had in Germany. I didn't really want to move or change. And it was kind of like a little bit of a badge of honor to have gone through 2nd through 12th grade in that school system. In the military community, students move all the time. Probably the longest anyone stays is 4 years. So the fact that I was able to stay in one place for 10 years is very, very rare. After that, I graduated and I went to Trinity University here in San Antonio. And I also got a full ride ROT. Well, it's not really a full ride, but just for simplicity, we'll call it a full ride. It's really just a full tuition ROTC scholarship, and everyone thought it was crazy. They're like, I didn't think you would want to join the military. And I was like, it's a great opportunity. And like I said, I wanted to really pay back my country for the opportunities that I had been given. So I decided to, kind of repay it. And I ended up getting this amazing scholarship, this amazing opportunity. I had to go through interviews and do all these fitness tests. It was really cool. And then, I ended up attending school at Trinity University and also be doing my ROTC program over here at UTSA at the same time. So kind of went to both colleges at the same time. While I was at Trinity, I was studying computer science, and I figured I was going to do the exact same thing in the military. But then this opportunity came along to become an RPA pilot. So RPA stands for Remote Piloted Aircraft. Most people probably know of it as like UAV, so unmanned aerial vehicles. And I was going to become one of those pilots. So a little bit in the meantime, I had decided to do that and basically become a pilot in the U.S. Air Force. And I didn't want to become like a fighter pilot or a heavy pilot. I wanted to become specifically an RPA pilot. And when I was going through it, they really opened up that program for that specific thing. And that for me was exactly where I wanted to go through. And I knew it was going to be a very difficult program. The RPA program had the highest washout rate of any of the pilot schools. And I was like, for me, anytime someone says like this is going to be one of the most difficult things that you can go through, I'm always like, okay, let me just go do it. I'm never a person to kind of like back down from a challenge. And then the other thing is like it has a highest rate of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And for me, I just felt like I was very solidly within myself as a person. I very much understood who I was and what I was doing, and why I wanted to go commit to this program. And so I felt that although, yes, it was going to take a toll on me physically and emotionally and mentally, I wanted to kind of go through this program and kind of just show like I am strong enough to do this, and I am strong enough to, take on this difficult job again, because I had these wonderful, amazing opportunities in the past. So I wanted to kind of go through it, and I applied for the position, and I ended up getting selected for the position. I was so excited. I got called my senior year in college, and they had said, hey, we have positions here for this. You're selected. And I was like, awesome, that's great. So I was going up through my senior year of college, and then I had to go it's a flight physical. Basically, it's a physical that you would have to do for pretty much anything, except you have to do a lot more stuff because they have to make sure that you are physically and mentally prepared for this. And so it was my senior year in college, and that's where pretty much everything changed for me. I went through this flight physical, and then on one of the questionnaires, it said, do you have sleepwalking episodes? And I was like, yeah, that just happened to me, a week ago. And I was told that I had ended up getting out of bed and walking over to the door and almost like just leaving the room before someone was like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And then going back to sleep. And then that was my sleepwalking episode at that time. I had sleepwalk when I was younger, and then I kind of do it, every once in a while. But unbeknownst to me, that is a factor that completely disbars you from joining the military at all. And so I was under an investigation of like, was I defrauding the military of all of this money that was being put into me? Like I said, I had been given a full tuition scholarship. Trinity is not a cheap school. So it came out to be a lot of money. I think it came out to be almost $300,000 that I had received from the military in order to pay for my schooling and everything. So it was definitely a life-changing experience. Because as soon as I checked that box and told them my story, they said, okay, yeah, you're not becoming a pilot, and 2, you're not becoming an officer in the U.S. Air Force, and 3, you can't join any military branch at all. And I was like, I had been locked into this job since before I had even entered college, and everything had just changed. And that was a very difficult thing for me to go through. So Helene just brought up this pretty interesting point that I wanted to talk about real quick, was that I do have an honorable discharge from the U.S. military. So when you're an ROTC in college, you are actually enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. So I actually have an honorable discharge as an airman basic of all things from the military. But it's not something I really advertise because I feel like I never really set foot as active duty and really fulfilled what I was going for. And I ended up sitting back one day and saying, okay, why did I want to join the military? And it came down to 3 things. And it really goes through like the Air Force values, but it goes through, 1, I wanted every day to be different. Number 2, I wanted to work with people every day. So like I said, I had a computer science degree in my back pocket, but in computer science, if you become a programmer, you're basically left to do a lot of the work individually. And that for me wasn't going to be what I wanted. I wanted to work with people and be really hands-on, face-to-face with people. Really be able to build those relationships. And the last thing was I wanted to serve my community. I wanted to have a job where I felt like I was still paying back my country for, again, the amazing opportunities that I had been given. And so I had to narrow it down to those 3 things. And I decided, like, okay, I think I can get into education and do those 3 things. Every day is definitely different. I get to work with hundreds of people every single day and build deep relationships with them. Well, not with like every single person, but like to build deep relationships. I have great relationships with a lot of my students, a lot of you guys, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't a teacher. And last thing, I feel like as a teacher, we do kind of serve the community. We do kind of give back in a lot of ways. It is a very stressful job, not as stressful as being an RPA pilot, but it is stressful in other ways. It can definitely put a toll on a person and their family, depending on how they approach the job. And when I came down to it, I was like, okay, I want to get into education. This is what I'm going to do. So a little bit more about me. My mom is a teacher. My dad is now a teacher. My middle brother, Eric, he's a teacher. His wife, Betty, is a teacher. My fiance, soon-to-be wife, Helene, she's a teacher. And then my Thea, Chris, she's a teacher. So there's a lot of teachers in my family. And I was like, I felt really ready to get into the field, even though I hadn't had any training or any kind of like college experience or college courses being a teacher. I decided like this might be the good way to go. And so I jumped into it. My girlfriend had been teaching for 2 years at the time. And then I joined a program called City Year. It's basically where I was a tutor within schools and worked just with a handful of students specifically to help them catch up and learn mathematics. And I did that at Rhodes Middle School. And then the year after that, I had applied and gotten into Teach for America. And TFA helped me find interviews. And I wanted to work at Lanier, but Lanier wasn't at the hiring fair we were at. So I ended up going to and getting hired at Jefferson High School. I've been there ever since. So I started my career at Jefferson. I've been teaching there now for 4 years. I love it. It's an experience where I feel like I'm doing everything that I wanted to do, giving back to my community. Every day is different. I'm building relationships with students. I'm getting to meet you guys, 100 new students every single year, almost 200 new students every single year. And to me, I think that's exactly where I'm hitting it. It's exactly what I wanted in my life, in my career. Everything has kind of just fallen into place. It's not what I had envisioned. Definitely, it still makes me sad that I'm not a pilot in the U.S. Air Force. I'm not fulfilling those dreams that I had. But I'm happy with where I've come into it and how I was able to adapt and become the person I am today. So that's pretty much my story. Now, there's like a lot of little tidbits in there. Like, yes, when I was in high school, I played soccer and basketball, and then a lot of amazing stories. I was able to play baseball in like 3 different countries. I played soccer and basketball in like 4 or 5 different countries, playing internationally. I tried out and got cut from the soccer team at Trinity University. Definitely a lot of experiences more that I've had that I'm not going to, it didn't really fall into exactly the specifics of how I got into everything here. But, this is pretty much everything about me. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you guys have more questions, just don't hesitate to ask me. I try to be as open as possible with you guys, even though I joke around. But I hope you guys learned a little bit more about me. I know that for me, I always want to be more of a person for you guys. And, not everyone really gets to build that relationship with their teachers. So I wanted to, if people were looking for a platform to build a relationship with me, I'm trying to just open myself up to you guys so you can do that. But I hope everyone's had a great Thanksgiving. I'll see you guys next week. My name is Mr. Hernandez. Keep working hard. Stay safe.